Cool. Looking good. So, all's well. Hello and welcome to Philosophy Roulette number 227, where I read and review philosophy papers live on air. I take suggestions from the audience sometimes, or mostly I just grab whatever's on the front page of Phil Papers that isn't too long. So, that's why it's roulette. I don't know what I'm going to get. I don't know if it's any good, but we read it and see if we can figure out what is going on. Let's see. Is This Me? A story about personal identity from the Mahaprajnaparamitopadesa by Dazidulon. Let's click on that. British Journal for the Philosophy of Science. Let's just click on the history of philosophy. Let's just see what they have. These papers tend to be kind of long. 1 to 24 is too long for me. But, can look at the journal. Nope. They don't have a whole lot of new things. But this is, 14, 15 pages. Maybe I could try that out. If it's here, maybe we could see. Nope. Nope. Get access. No, thank you. Okay. Can't say I didn't try. A bunch of reviews. Let's see. Reviews. Introductions. Alright. Nope. No good. Okay. See a little BJPS. I can look there. See what else we got. They put out a lot of stuff. European Journal of Philosophy. They have very small font, I found. Phil Quarterly. And the Ancient Folks. Okay. Unmixing for Causal Inference. Thoughts on McCaffrey and Danks. Well, we could use some dank philosophy, couldn't we? Let's click on that. Malamute Hogarth machines. I don't know what that is. Click on that. Principle does not apply the principle of indifference. Did I read this one? I think I might have. Yeah, so this looks like these are people arguing about it. Alright, so this is interesting. So there's a few of those. Huh. And this is short, because if it's got 0 pages here, that means they don't got page numbers. Alright, that's fine. I was like, how could it be that short? And demise of brain death. Alright, so we got a whole bunch of these. Let's see if any of them are just here, because those get prioritized if I don't have to worry about stuff. This is on the full site archive. So, that's prioritized. This one is here. This is synthetic. Yeah, but I don't know how long it is. Well, let's click on it real fast. If it's too long, it's a Word doc. I'm not dealing with Word docs today. This one, it's a DOI. What's that mean? Probably nothing. This one is also with the 0 page length. So this is very suspicious to me. Is this a 0 page length as well? No, this is 10 pages. I like that. This is not available. Full text. Let's see. Oopsie. Yep. Nope, I have to pay for it. Not happening. Okay, so we could go back. Let's see how long is this? This is 10 pages. Let's get it from the Phil Site archive. Take a look. Oh, if it's all calculations, nope, can't read it. Too much math. This is the problem with some philosophy of science, is that there's too many formulas. And not that I have anything, I like technical philosophy actually, but it's just not fit for reading online on the air, because I'm sitting there going X, Y equals plus 3 sigma, whatever. It's not good. Alright, so this one, is it available? Don't think it is, but sometimes I click on Scholar and it finds it for me. Nope. We've got NIH. Wonder, were these government funded? Oh, this is okay. This is why I don't do the science too much. Alright, no more science then. That's too bad. Alright, so we've got an Adam Smithian account of moral reasons. Ooh, okay, that's good 14 pages. Let's see if we can find something nice and short. I like short. Human's Motivist Theory of Moral Judgments, Philosopher and the Reader, Kierkegaard and Wittgenstein on Love and Philosophical Method. Well, that sounds exciting. Is this a review or something? No, it's... What is that, 15 pages? Probably not a review. Yeah, but it looks like reviews because there's no abstract. I don't know. Moral responsibility. Why you cannot make people better by telling them what is good. 10 pages. Because I'm afraid that, what was this? This journal I think I've looked at before that, like, their font is very small. And so 10 pages is closer to 20 pages, but let's go take a look real fast and see if this is available. And, yeah, exactly. 23 pages. So, yeah, so you have to do the, okay, so this is more reasonable, because this is, half that. So, and these are all reviews. Okay. It's just, if I, attempt to read something longer than really 18 pages, it's hard to, maintain describing everything that needs to be like, I have to be able to understand kind of what's going on. If it gets longer than like an hour and a half, it's very difficult to, keep everything organized for myself at least. Alright, primary reasons as normative reasons. Interesting. Did I read this? It's got 250 downloads, so this seems like it's a popular paper. And it's 14 pages, which is very friendly to the stream. So this is looking like the chief. Oh, look at that. Oh, wow, this is alright. I think we have a winner. Hope I didn't read this. I might have already read this. Did I read this? Oh, dear. I think I did. Should go find out real fast. How PRA? Let me see. This is the, what was 224 really? Oh dear, I don't have any recollection is the problem. Well, let's see real simple on my downloads. Do I have one of these already? Nope. Alright, so I'm gonna click, oopsie. We'll take a look. I have actually read the same paper twice. And look at that. Why did it open up to the bottom? Did I read this? I must have. Huh. Yeah. That's the only reason this would open up to the bottom of the page. So I did read this. Okay. I apologize. Yeah. I thought I kind of recognized this topic, but that is funny. It all like slips out of my mind very quickly. Alright, so we've got a sideways look at faithfulness for quantum correlations, and this is another one of those problems I'd be worried about being too scientific, because too scientific is too mathematically. Mark Jago, I've read Mark Jago's work here. Mark Jago also does Attic Philosophy on the YouTube. Everyone should go check out Mark Jago on YouTube. Attic Philosophy, it's another really nice philosophy stream. He goes in depth on some of the different topics, and So like you can go read about he's doing like a modal logic thing. It's like you can go get a nice introduction to like more complex topics than are usually covered on YouTube, or like some maybe not more complex, but like he's going into like some unique topics that you don't normally see. Okay, yeah. So Journal of Philosophy. That's why I was excited about this. But I read it already. Let's see if there's anything on the page 2 from before. Money Pump and Foresight. Yeah, I think I've taken a look at all of these already. Okay. Fine. No Journal of Philosophy. Phil Quarterly. See if they have anything. This is a review. A sperm and ovum separately. Contra Marquis on abortion and contraception. Okay. That looks like it could be something. I don't remember if this, what the, well, let's just see if it's here before I start criticizing the length. And it doesn't even look like it's available, but we can take a look real quick. Yep, no open access here. And no access there. So that's unfortunate. Can't read your paper if it's not available to be read. Phronesis, go classical. And this does happen sometimes where I just can't find anything to read. Late Antiquity, that's a big old time period, and that's the only thing that's not extremely long. Let's go see if it's available. Brill.com. All you academic publishers. Is it $35 to read a freaking... Nope. Okay, so this has not been a lucky selection for papers this time. Review, bioethics, again, too much sciencey. Why the immorality of consuming alcohol during pregnancy cannot tell us that abortion is immoral. A reply to Hendricks. Let's just click on that, see what that looks like. See if it's available, not available. Do we even know how long it is? No. Oh, but it's available? Let's see. What do we got? Open access. Bioethics. Page 1 of 2. Oh, this is just a... Alright, we're going to do it because we can. You know what? Cool. Let's see how it looks. Make sure everything shows up the right way. Looks good. So this is a little quick bioethics paper, which is cool. That's this one. This is load silly. So cool. So for the viewers that are here, and we do have some. If you want the link, there it is. It will also be for people later. I will try to remember to link it in the YouTube. Yeah, so we're just going to do this one quick and maybe something else afterwards. We shall see. Alright, so here we go. We're doing why the immorality of consuming alcohol during pregnancy cannot tell us that abortion is immoral. Reply to Hendricks by Bjorn Lundgren, and I apologize for how I say your names. And this is out of the Bioethics Journal. It's a response paper. In his Even if the fetus is not a person, abortion is immoral, the impairment argument, Perry Hendricks argues that abortion is immoral even if the fetus is not a person. Hendricks' argument is quite simple. 1. Causing an organism O to have, I guess it'd be fetal alcohol syndrome is immoral, and that's just from premise 1. That I guess giving anything fetal alcohol syndrome is bad. If causing O to have fetal alcohol syndrome is immoral, then ceteris paribus, killing O is immoral. I don't know what from tip is though, but we can assume that if having fetal alcohol syndrome is bad, then also killing it is also bad. Those would be two bad things, and I guess that makes some sense. You could make an equivalence that if you're going to have one very bad thing, then killing it also is a very bad thing, and if it has one, then also the other. 3. Therefore, killing the organism O is immoral. 4. If one aborts O, then she kills O. 5. Therefore, to abort O is immoral. As we can see, the argument depends on the application of two separate premises, Premise 1 and TIP. Premise 1 is, I believe, uncontentious and states that it is immoral to give a fetus fetal alcohol syndrome. Here, FAS stands for fetal alcohol syndrome, which can cause, as Hendricks exemplifies, cognitive impairment such as an inability to count and tell time in the 7th grade. Yeah, fetal alcohol syndrome is very bad. Tip, the impairment principle, states that if it is immoral to impair an organism O to the nth degree, then ceteris paribus, it is immoral to impair O to the n+1 degree. So what is this? This is a kind of a induction on impairment. Interesting. Okay. In this reply, I will present two potential problems with Hendricks' arguments. First, I will argue that the interpretation of tip, the impairment principle, makes it an unreasonable principle because it ignores facts that would be considered ethically relevant according to most standard normative theories. Second, I will argue that if we attempt to solve this problem by reinterpreting tip, then the step from tip to the second premise, P2, fails. Finally, I will end the reply by summing up the main conclusions. Okay, so what it looks like is we have that you don't want to give anything fetal alcohol syndrome. That's just very, very bad. And so we're going to assume that. But the problem is that sliding from impairment to other things, like worse impairments, is not what it seems. It doesn't seem straightforward, because it seems like if you're going to hurt someone X amount or impair them X amount, then it doesn't matter how much more you impair them, because you've already done the damage, and so anything above that's also bad. But I guess the author is going to draw a disanalogy between going from one kind of impairment to maybe a different kind of impairment, which would be like the killing, or to abort. So it'd be of a different type. So we'll see. And anyone out there, feel free to ask questions or whatnot. Just this is a short paper, so we're on the last page already. Why tip is unreasonable. The first problem has to do with the ceteris paribus clause. Hendricks makes it clear that we should understand the requirement in the following sense. Let us take the ceteris paribus clause to be met only if the relevant details surrounding the impairment in the antecedent are sufficiently similar to the relevant details surrounding the impairment in the consequent. Moreover, Hendricks shows through example that by relevant details surrounding the impairment, he means the nature of impairment, that is, the impairment causing n+1 degrees include the impairment causing n degrees, and what that impairment entails, for example, whether the impairment gives the impaired other benefits. Hendricks also thinks that if the impaired has consented to the impairing action, then tip does not kick in. However, if the ceteris paribus clause in tip should be limited to concern only the qualities of and facts associated with the impairment, excluding, for example, the consequences and or intentions of the decision to cause the impairment, then tip is just plainly false, according to most standard normative theories. The problem is that the moral decision involves various consequences that are ignored on this reading of tip, such as the action of as well as the consequences for the potential mother. Most standard consequentialists and deontological theories would hold that consideration for the mother should be part of the moral evaluation. Moreover, most deontologists would also think that her intentions matter. Since tip conflicts with standard normative theories, we cannot, if we rely on those theories, use tip to draw conclusions about what is moral and what precisely and which is precisely what Hendricks does with P2. Alright, so this argument is basically saying, look, if you're going to rely on tip to make an anti-abortion argument, your principle here can't overturn all of ethical theories that you're purporting to say matter. Like, you can't say, look, we have this ethical theory tip saying this is called the impairment principle. Your impairment principle can't overturn the whole theory of ethics that you're relying upon. So if your impairment principle takes over the whole theory because it overrides all the other conclusions of the theory, then that is basically begging the question in some sense, because you've already assumed a massively strong principle, and that principle is all you're going by. And so if you're just going to assume a principle that overrides all the other ethics that you might have, then you've kind of sort of assumed the conclusion you want to get anyway, because you're basically defining yourself into what your conclusion is. So if you end up in this sort of position where you're overwriting all of ethics, either consequentialist and deontological at the same time, it means that maybe you've overstepped the bounds in your principles that you've assumed. Okay, so I think that's what the point is right here. Someone let me know if they think that my interpretation is a little funky. Okay, 3. Why reinterpreting tip will not help. A possible way of rescuing Hendricks' argument would be to reinterpret tip, in particular the ceteris paribus clause, to include a broader sense of considerations, that is, all the facts that should normally be considered in a moral decision. Hey, cryonics, makes sense to me? Cool. Very little ever makes sense to me, but thank you. To include broader a set of considerations, that is, all the facts that should normally be considered in a moral decision according to standard normative theory. So this is what I was just saying. You need to hold on to your normative theories in some sense right over here. If so, we would have to say that the ceteris paribus clause should apply not only to the impairment as such, but also to the complete moral decision about whether to perform the action that would possibly cause an impairment. So, okay, so you have to... Alright, now fetal alcohol syndrome is really bad. But you have to also consider in the factors that might lead to fetal alcohol syndrome. Now normally that's just getting drunk. Or I don't know how much you have to get drunk for fetal alcohol syndrome, probably a lot. But you have to take that into account too. Okay, while there are many alternatives for how to do that, I will use a non-specific example to illustrate that the inclusion of relevant moral facts invalidates the step from tip to premise 2. Why? Because the decisions are not relevantly similar. Okay, and to make this argument go through, if you recall, it had to be a kind of induction that if you're going to impair a fetus, anything that is worse than that impairment, as long as you think that impairment is a moral wrong, then everything past that is also wrong. But they have to be past that in a way that it sort of all is of the same sort. So if you're impairing them in one way, a fetus gets impaired in one way, like with fetal alcohol syndrome, then any more fetal alcohol syndrome impairment is all worse. But it has to be of the same sort of thing, is the argument here. And so the author in this case is going to say, look, you can't get out of the little sort of lane you're in if you're doing this. So reinterpreting the impairment principle won't work. Okay, why? While the basic choices under consideration can differ substantially when we spell them out sufficiently to evaluate them, I need not consider all options to prove my point. I will start by assuming that the choice of whether to consume alcohol during a certain period of the pregnancy is made by the person who previously decided to have the pregnancy. If so, the choice of whether to consume alcohol is standardly a choice between a present-time pleasure or social convenience and the long-term risks to the future child. Simply put, it is a choice between a small benefit for the self, that is, the future mother, and a substantial risk for the potential child, which of course also includes severe consequences for the mother. This choice is obviously very different from the choice of whether to abort the fetus, which involves mid and long-term considerations for both the potential mother and the potential child. The choice is a forking path that includes considerations and possibly different futures not included in the consideration of whether to consume alcohol, that is, futures without the potential child. Hence, if we modify TIP to rescue it, then Hendrick's second premise is false because the reinterpreted ceteris paribus clause is not satisfied. The actions considered in the antecedent and consequent are not sufficiently similar. Okay, so there's one thing to do harm to a fetus, in this case, fetal alcohol syndrome, by drinking alcohol. But if you decide to get an abortion, the author is claiming, then you're branching off because you no longer have a child anymore, and so the harm that's coming to the child no longer exists in this branching path. And so since you're completely off the harm path, there is no N+1 step in the induction that they were saying. Like, look, if you're harming the child by giving fetal alcohol syndrome, clearly you can't abort them because that's more harm. But the author is saying, no, the only way you can look at this is saying, look, more harm means more to fetal alcohol syndrome. If you're just not having the kid to begin with, then that's a completely different thing. Okay. One may argue that I have set aside a possibility that would have made the choices similar, since I assumed the potential mother had decided to have the pregnancy when she was deciding whether to consume alcohol. However, for Hendrick's argument to work, we have to isolate the drinking choice from the abortion choice, for the argument would otherwise be circular. That is, we would have two situations, one in which the potential mother considers whether to drink and abort, and another in which the potential mother considers whether to abort. Moreover, the choice of whether to consume alcohol also included the choice of whether to abort. TIP could not be applied under any reading considered here, because the possible outcomes of the consequent would not correspond to an impairment to the N+1 degree relative to the N degree impairment in the antecedent. Yeah, so if you're looking at fetal alcohol syndrome versus abortion, then they're not of the same sort of thing. So it's not like you're more fetal alcohol syndrome in an abortion. They're just not. You're not getting fetal alcohol syndrome because it's not being born. Did he explain that Hendrick's position? He really didn't, or I assume Bjorn is a he. Let me finish up the conclusion and we'll run back up to the top. There's only a 2-page paper, DeMarshall. Hi, DeMarshall. So this is it. This is just a really short little response piece, but we can just run back to that. Let me finish this last summation. Okay. I've argued that the ceteris paribus clause in TIP conflicts with most standard normative theories. Moreover, if we reinterpret the ceteris paribus clause to conform to the standard normative theories, then TIP no longer supports P2, and Hendrick's argument fails. This creates a seemingly unavoidable dilemma for Hendrick's argument. Either it is in conflict with the standard normative theories, or it is invalid. Okay, so basically, this is the original argument right here. It says if you cause an organism to have fetal alcohol syndrome, that's immoral. Assuming that, I think everyone agrees that fetal alcohol syndrome is terrible and it's immoral. And so if you cause something to have fetal alcohol syndrome is immoral, then ceteris paribus killing it is also immoral from TIP, and the TIP is the impairment principle. It says if you do one thing that harms an organism, then anything past that in like the same sort of in a more extreme degree is also bad. So once you get to the doing something bad, immoral state, then anything above that is also immoral, which makes sense. Like if I torture you for a little bit, that's bad, but then you wouldn't want to say more torture is somehow not bad. So that's kind of the argument here. Now, do I know, and has this author given a fair representation of Hendrick's original argument? I don't know. I mean, this is a very short run through. I'd have to assume that this little bit is well, nah, abortion is fine. Yeah, I mean, these people are arguing, reasons why one might think one way or the other. They're not really arguing what's going on here. But I think this author is, from this argument, it looks like, what this author has presented is a good response to it. Because for the two reasons. if you have a principle like TIP that basically overwrites all of your philosophy, your ethical philosophy, then you've assumed the conclusion in this one principle. You've assumed everything. And so if you say, well, look, if you got fetal alcohol, this one bad thing, and then all of a sudden I can tell you everything else to do, like no abortion because this is one bad thing over here, and then we can make a conclusion over there about abortion, it's too strong. It's not making any sense because it completely overrides all of ethics. And so it's not, unless you're going to all of a sudden say the impairment principle is the basis of all ethics, then it's this argument is dead in the water. And then secondly, why trying to fix it won't help is because you have to keep the impairment principle in a very narrow line to say, look, you're in a question of degrees. Yeah, it's good trying to convince those weirdos, but man, yes, people feel very strongly usually for like religious reasons, or they feel very strong for ethical reasons, and so they come up with these arguments that basically support one position or another, and they're of varying quality. So, but I mean, can't they just replace FAS with harm to the fetus in general? I think that's kind of the point. FAS is just a stand-in for some very bad thing, but for this argument to go through, they needed the impairment principle because it has to be of a certain degree. They say, look, if it's in a certain degree, anything past that is doing it, and so they want to get this sort of induction on it, cryonics. And I think that was kind of what they thought was the clever thing, that if you can get people to agree that like a certain kind of bad is bad, then you can like sort of extend that, but they have to keep it in a but to do that, you have to say, well, look, it's a matter of degree then. But once it's a matter of degree, then it's not just a general harm to the fetus. Because once you just say general harm, people don't know what that is. But they can say, look, fetal alcohol syndrome is bad. So, again, I don't know. I have not, of course, read the original article. But that's what looks like it's going on here. Because otherwise, why would you bother doing all this work to say n+1 degree of, like, harm? Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing I can think of, but that's a good question. Why did they limit themselves so clearly to this example? And I have to think it is because that's how they got their strong conclusion. But I think the conclusion was way too strong. I'm with this author here. So. Yeah, so. Okay. Fun little paper. If you guys have more questions, let me know, or else I'll go do another paper right after this. I know I asked my brother, he is an MD, he explained to me a position in my country that even the most ridiculous strict religion accepts something from scripture you got from 40. Yeah, so, but like I said, these people are arguing over non-realistic cases in some sense. These are sort of theorists, which is fine, but most places around the world understand that things happen and you have to not take the word of someone writing 1,000 or 2,000 or 5,000 years ago as exactly how we live today. So, of course you can. I'm not saying one way or the other. Sometimes people 1,000 years ago were smart too, but, things change. People change, and we do learn stuff over time, so we can change our minds. That's a good thing. Yeah. So, okay. That's cool. So, that'll be